Today's guest is Udo Erasmus. He's the founder of Udo's Choice and author of the book Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill, which has sold over 250,000 copies. So clearly there are a number of people who are really fascinated around what he's been sharing. And he has shared the stage with people like Deepak Chopra. So when his team approached me about him joining as a guest on the show, I was very intrigued to hear more. And his personal story, which I hope we'll have a chance to touch on when we're talking, actually began with intense struggle as a young child during the Second World War. And his journey has taken him through studies in biochemistry, genetics, biology, and nutrition, as well as a master's degree in counselling psychology. And it's also seen him take his health into his own hands when doctors couldn't support him. So my sense is that his life experience has meant he now holds some really strong, powerful messages about what it means to live life well and the tools that we can put in place to do that. And as ever, I would love to hear your thoughts and reflections on where his approach to life takes your own thinking. And if you'd like to know more, he's actually gifting one of his courses for free. So the special link and the offer code, which are just for us, are all in the notes, and I'll touch on it again at the end of the show. So Udo has got an 8-step process that takes into consideration all of the elements of nature and human nature, including physical health, mental health, presence and awareness, life energy, and being in harmony with nature and humanity. And I'm hoping we get to touch on at least some of these as we talk. Now, our focus today is all around finding peace in chaotic times. And it feels particularly fitting now. And my sense is that this is, in truth, a really timeless topic, because we can obviously look at chaotic times as being something which is happening geographically distant from us in terms of, the kind of macro environment that we live in. But also there is deep power, of course, in finding peace in chaotic times when that sense of chaos is much closer to home, maybe even in our own home or inside our own vessel, inside our own headspace, where our thinking perhaps gets into maybe unhelpful thought loops, and it starts to feel chaotic or jumbled. So finding peace at each of those kind of levels, coming from the macro all the way in to the micro, feels like it's, as I said, a timeless topic and always something that is useful to explore. So I am really, really interested and excited to chat with Udo and to hear some of his wisdom around these areas. And I was also going to sort of share some thoughts around other things that we've got coming up as well. So there are, and they tie in with this idea of finding peace. So we've got we've got a retreat, an online morning retreat, which is in the middle of May in the morning. I think it's either the 14th or the 15th of May. I really ought to prepare this before I share this stuff. Um, and then we've also got a weekend retreat here at Batchbrook Farm in Herefordshire, which is the first weekend in July. Now, if we want to find peace, this is a place to find peace. And it will be a small group. We're limiting the numbers. Most of the places have already gone, but there are a few still remaining. I'll share a link on the notes, or you can just come over to the website hennyflynn.co.uk and look at the retreats, and you'll see it is high care, low key. That's our approach. Delicious food, beautiful surroundings, but very easy and designed around you. So you can be part of it in whatever way feels right for you in that moment. And for me, that's really fundamental to finding this idea of inner peace. And it's also the true expression of self-compassion, I think, is listening to what it is that we need in the moment. So there's a couple of things there, and it would be gorgeous to see you at both. And I'm going to take myself onto mute now, and we'll wait for Udo to join us, and then we'll be back in a moment. Okay. So, hi Udo. It's gorgeous to see you here and to have you as a guest here.
Yeah, thank you for letting me do this. This is what I live for.
To communicate.
Yeah, there's a message. There's definitely a message that I'm interested in putting out. Everybody's got a message, and so we're in the marketplace of different messages, and the messages are all over the map. Mine is about peace and unconditional love and inspired creativity as a foundation for living a fulfilled, productive, and contributive life.
Gosh, there's so much richness in that.
Yeah, I just came up with that.
Yeah,
I
that's
just, yeah,
just off the top of your head.
yeah. I did. I don't have a prepared speech. I'm doing my best to live from experience in the moment. And because when we talk about the world and how things are going and what's all going on and the confusion and the chaos and all of that, I was lying in bed this morning. I do a practice, like a stillness practice, and I like to start my day that way because I get to carry that into the world. Get to carry that with me, but I have to do the homework. And the biggest issue is we're not doing our homework. What is the homework? It's the work you do at home within yourself to bring your awareness into the space that your body occupies and to discover the richness of feeling, of peace, of love, of wisdom, of understanding that is built into us, waiting to be dug out. But we can't dig it out if we're always just going out, 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 out. Because then
We
we
need
don't
to
even
come
know
in.
what we're bringing out. Then we live in reaction to what's out there instead of bringing something into the world that will create the kind of world we want to live in. So I was lying there and doing that, right? It's like, okay, peace. And peace I would say peace is the major attribute of God if you're a religious person. And I'm not talking about a God with a white beard that looks like Abraham. I'm talking about the power that the presence, the state of being that is the foundation and the container of everything in the universe, including my existence, your existence, everybody's existence, right? that peace is always everywhere. Everything that goes on in the world is taking place in that container of peace. But not everybody is focused on the container of peace, right? Like in a war, the war takes place in peace. But the warriors are focused on an idea in their head. You're my enemy, I'm going to kill you. You're my enemy, I'm going to kill you. And then they play out that drama in a container of complete peace. There's peace in the warriors, there's peace between the warriors, there's peace around the warriors, there's peace above the warriors, and there's peace below the warriors. If they were focused on that peace, they would put down their weapons and would say to each other, how can we make life better for everybody? Because that's what happens when you're in peace, because in peace, you're taken care of. You know, if you felt the unconditional love that your life is for your body, you would feel so cared for that there would be nothing else left to do except how can I help? What needs to be done? What's the biggest splash I can make for good in the time that I have? Right? So we are doing it to ourselves by ignoring what is possible, that we
So,
already live in, that we already have.
yeah. So that, I mean, again, gosh, so much in there, and it's reminding me of something that I heard you say somewhere else when I was kind of doing a bit of research around you, and you were talking about how we prepare for war rather than preparing for peace.
Yeah, we expect peace to somehow drift down on us while we're preparing for war,
Yeah. So
right? You know,
rather
because
than,
to make the missiles and to make the explosives and to screw all that stuff together, you know, and to make all of the gadgets of war, the tanks and the guns and the missiles and the planes and the drones and everything, right? I mean, enormous amount of time goes into it. Somebody makes enormous amount of money on that stuff. And then we sit there, oh, please God, bring us peace. We're not going to do anything. You make it happen. But we're making this happen. But, you know, I mean, you know, if we sat down and said, oh God, if you want a war, please go ahead and have one, but please leave me out of this. That'd be a better prayer, right?
my thought, just listening to you there, is it's interesting, isn't it? It's like we expect peace to be the thing that happens in the absence of war,
Right, that's how we've
rather
defined it.
rather than war being the thing that happens in the absence of peace.
Right.
And
And peace is a presence,
yeah.
and its absence leads to war.
And so this idea, so this is kind of what I was sort of thinking about in terms of that, those kind of macro conditions of like we see war playing out, you know, hopefully distant from us, but obviously for many of us very close by.
Well, because we take it in, and then we trip in our head. Then we have a war in our head, in our
Exactly.
imagination,
Exactly.
right?
And so then for me, I suppose the kind of in terms of that inner conditions, our fears are really like a kind of construct of war. You know, it's that thing that if we're investing all of our energy worrying or being
Mm-hmm.
afraid and
Mm-hmm.
anxious, then and then we say, but why can't I feel calm? Or why don't I feel calm? But if our head is entirely focused on that stuff, it's very
Mm-hmm.
hard for our body to feel at
Well, the
peace.
thing is, when somebody says, "Why can't I feel calm?" The answer is you can, because the calmness lives within you at the same time. You know, the calmness is throughout your entire being. Peace, whatever you call it, calmness, contentment, is throughout your entire being, always there as a state of being. And your worry is mostly in the cortex of your brain, right? You're taking sensory information, then it's like, then you trip in your head and your imagination. What if, what if, what if? Then you get anxious. Anxious is a form of fear, right? But you made it up in your head, because the what if, there's no, a what if doesn't exist. I know it from experience. I was afraid of flying, and I was flying all the time. And I would get on the plane, and I just like immediately go into what if? What if we crash? And I was like, I said it over and over again. What if we crash? What if we crash? What if we crash? Totally adrenalized myself. Cried on the plane sometimes because I was so afraid. Didn't call the people to come and pick me up at the airport because I was sure we weren't going to make it. All in my imagination. And when somebody said to me, flying is actually safer than driving, my answer was, it might be, but it doesn't feel like that to me. And then I sat with it. And then I did this thing, cowards die many times before their death. You know that Shakespeare thing, right? The valiant never taste of death but once. Of all the wonders that I yet have heard, it seems most strange to me that men should fear, knowing death a necessary end will come when it will come. Right? And then I would trip on that a little bit. And it's like, yeah, I was a coward. Right? And then I started seeing what I was doing. I could have just as easily imagined safe landings, which would have been closer to reality. But I chose, even though I wasn't aware of making the choice, because I wasn't paying attention enough, I chose to imagine crashes that are much less likely to occur, right? All things considered. And then eventually I got to a point where I would just go into a deep meditation, which is beyond fear. And I would just hang out in that meditation, and then flying became okay for me. But it took time. It took a while. I had to do something I hadn't done.
Yeah.
So I had to learn to do it, and that takes time.
Yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
Learning a skill of focus.
And that pattern of thinking that you had subconsciously or inadvertently created for yourself or chosen for yourself, then needs to be unlearned and a new pattern put in place.
Well, in a sense, but the way I did it was I didn't unlearn it. I shifted my focus.
Okay.
I shifted my focus to a peace that has always existed within me, that I've been meditating on for 50 years.
Yeah.
But I wasn't using it in that situation.
Gorgeous.
And then I got into that peace, and in that peace, there's no fear. And in that peace, you can imagine things, but you don't have to. Right? In that peace, you actually have a choice, because the totality of what is possible exists within us. What we focus on is usually much narrower than what is possible, right? And so fundamentally, when you have chaos in your life, you have to deal with it. But you can also give peace equal time, because that's really good for you. And you'll probably deal with the chaos better from a place of peace than you do when you're just like frantic.
There's something really gorgeous about listening to you sharing that story and the learning that you had about it, because it also demonstrates that this work, you touched on that when you very first spoke, that this work on ourselves doesn't just, it's not like we get to a point where we go, ta-da, and we're done. It's about a constant awareness, reflection.
We're a work in progress.
Yeah.
And the truth is, every moment of the day that we live, whatever is coming at us and whatever is going on and whatever is changing, because everything that can't change will change. And we like the change, but we like it manageable. We want to be in control of the change. And we're really not in control of the change. We're not in control of the seasons. We're not in control of when the leaves fall off the trees. We're not in control when the flowers start to bloom. When spring really happens, with the warm weather and all that. We're not in control of almost anything. We're not in control of our digestion even. We're not in control of our heartbeat. Unless we're very, very advanced yogis who actually can be in control of that from a much deeper place. Right? So we're living in change all the time. It's just that we like changes, certain kinds of changes, but not other changes. But why can't you say, relax, nothing is under control? right? And let things be the way they are. You don't have to have an opinion on everything. You don't have to have control of everything, right? And you can, and while you're living in a, on a little walnut shell on an ocean with big waves, right? You can be in complete peace, enjoying the ride. And
Where did you?
one day the ride will end. That's a given, because we're
Yeah.
physical, the body will end, but the peace will never end, and the unconditional love will never end. And so we have a choice, even in the worst situations. That peace is closer than our nose, because it's within us. Like, we're in it, right? We're in it, looking away from it, and then we won't see it. So can we maybe look from peace at everything that's changing, and see the peace even in the change? Because peace is everywhere, including in the change, including in the galaxies colliding, right? Because peace is the container of everything.
Where did you? Where did you begin to create your connection or discover your connection with this?
Work in progress. I was born during the Second World War, so I was a war baby. We were refugees when I was 2.5 years old. Bullets were flying, and it was pretty chaotic. So I got pretty early thinking, gee, there must be a better way to live than this. And so I was always looking for how things worked. So I got into science, and then biological science and psychology, how things work, how creatures work, how thinking works. Always trying to, and then eventually, I guess when I was 17, my heart was aching, and it was aching all the time. And I couldn't find any distractions, because distraction is what we do when our heart aches. And I ran out of distractions, because I had already seen enough. The rich people weren't happier than I was, and the war certainly wasn't a good place to be. And the chaos of childhood and adolescence, was it was like, it wasn't like, lots of things weren't working out. They said, get good marks, you'll be happy. I got good marks, wasn't happy. And they said, get a good job and you'll be happy. I got a good job and I wasn't happy. And they said, marry a good wife and you'll be happy. I married a good wife, wasn't happy. Have some good kids and you'll be happy. When my son was born, the penny dropped. As beautiful as he was, and like, we called him the Rosebud Prince, because when he was sleeping, it was like just so peaceful, so beautiful. But I realized that that was not my fulfillment either, and that it was actually something that needed to change inside of me, because I was always looking for it on the outside, but the change has to happen on the inside. And the change is not that you have to manipulate something. The change is just that you bring your awareness back home to where it was when you were in your mother's womb, in the Buddha tank. I call it the Buddha tank, right? Because you were just in deep meditation for 9 months, never bored, no place to go, nothing to do, just hanging out, right? And your awareness was not going anywhere, because there was nothing to do and nowhere to go. So your awareness was inside, in its source, in you, in life, and beyond life in awareness. So we're all established meditators, Buddhas, right? And every child is like a God child, a Christ child, a Buddha child, a Krishna child, whatever you call that. We all begin there. We all have that in us. What the masters talked about is in every human being. But the masters actually did their homework, and we mostly dabble. And that's the difference. But if we did the homework like they did the homework, we would have the same life, the same wisdom, the same inspiration, the same peace, the same love that they had. It's because it's built into our nature. It's baked into us. But we have to look. We have to come home.
So there's something here which feels You used that word choice before.
Mm-hmm.
There's something so powerful here, I think, around the choice
Mm-hmm.
to think in a certain way or not.
Well, yeah, it is a choice, but most of the time we're not aware that we have the
Mm.
choice. So then, what kind of choice is that,
Yeah.
right? And then for me, it was something was not right. Something was missing. I had this ache in my heart. I didn't know what it was, and this was before all the Western, Eastern philosophies happened. Anytime I talk to people about it, they says, "Don't think about it. It'll drive you crazy. Why can't you just get a job like your brother?" You know,
Mm.
and you know, and but for
Suppress
some
it.
reason, I couldn't shake it, and I couldn't ignore it. And it was that ache, heartache, whether you call it heartache or emptiness or restlessness or yearning, striving, longing, that you feel in your chest that's uncomfortable. That's the call to come home. That's all it is. It's triggered by things on the outside that end often, right? Somebody dumps you, or somebody betrays you, or something you expected to happen didn't happen, right? And then your heart aches. But it's not the trigger that's the issue. It's the heartache. And the heartache is your disconnection from yourself, calling you to come home and reconnect to yourself. But we don't know that, because nobody in our culture, we're not told that. But if
Mm.
you look at it that way, and then you sit with the heartache, and you don't judge it, you just feel it, instead of running from it or blaming it on somebody, or ignoring it and say, no, 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 I'm okay, right? Then if you sit with it, your wholeness, that is the cure of your heartache, is that far. It's like less than a hair's breadth behind your heartache is your wholeness. Less than a hair's breadth behind your anxiety is your peace. Less than a hair's breadth behind the chaos is a contentment, right? So you start with a heartache. That's how you start.
Mm.
That was your question. Start with
Mm.
heartache. Be with it. It's okay. It won't kill you. It won't hurt you.
Ah, and that's
But
the
it
thing.
but it might be uncomfortable, and you might
Mm.
cry, but stay with it, because that's the starting point for the journey home to yourself, to your magnificence, to your beauty, to your essence, to your power,
And
to your love, to your peace.
this thing about being, comfortable in the discomfort, being willing to actually feel what we're feeling.
Yeah,
We've been taught
yeah.
by loving caregivers, but we've been taught to distract,
Mm-hmm.
to ignore, to suppress,
Mm-hmm.
push away.
Yeah.
And I feel, as I'm listening to you, I'm recognizing moments from my own
Mm-hmm.
journey, my own
We're all on that
past.
same journey.
Yeah. And that willingness, finding that what felt like courage
Mm-hmm.
to actually sit and allow myself to feel what I was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And so uncomfortable,
Yeah.
so painful. And yet,
And
when,
yet you can feel it calmly.
yeah,
Be with it calmly, because that calmness is who's looking at it. You are that calmness too, right? And then when that connection gets remade, you can also go to teachers. Some teachers
yeah.
who have done that, who live from that. You get a contact high from them in a way. You get a kind of you absorb the feeling from them, and then if you're lucky, they'll show you a way to go to that feeling yourself, without needing them to be there with you.
Mm.
Because ultimately, you want to be in a position where anytime you want to, you can just go there. Because your senses will always take you out, because they're attracted by change on the outside. That's part of the survival mechanism. You have to assess it, and you have to respond to it, right? And so your senses will always take you out. Coming home has to be deliberate, because it doesn't happen automatically, because there's nothing inside of the core of your being that says, hey, look at me, hey, look at me. That's all happening on the outside. On the inside, it's like, just, right?
Peace.
Content, calmness.
So, what do you see? I suppose, I suppose the question here then, that this, for everyone listening, this kind of concept of connecting with that sense of peace. I quite often think about how we know things going from like the head into the heart into the belly, the head, heart, horror sort of thing. And it's like, okay, so I can know that, I can recognize intellectually, I can understand what Udo's saying. Maybe I can feel it in my heart, I can have a sense of the peace. But how do I get to that place where I can like know it? Where I can,
Well, yeah.
what are the
I
tools?
I don't go this way. I get what you're saying, but I don't go this way. I go inward.
Okay,
Deeper you
same.
go
I think it's
inward,
the, yeah.
deeper you go inward, closer you get to it. How
Mm,
do you know? Well, because in truth, if you weren't so distracted by all the stuff in the world that you started to learn after you were born, you would recognize, if you were in the womb, or if you went back into the womb, into the space you were in at that time, you would now recognize that that's who you are. You are that peace. You are that unconditional love, and you are the energy called life. You're not the body. That's why if you ask me, whose body is this? I'll say, my body. It's my body. Yeah, I just told you I'm not the body. I told you I'm the owner. But who owns the body? Well, life owns the body, right? Life runs the whole show, weighs nothing, runs everything. Omnipresent, everywhere in my body. Omnipotent, all power in my body. And all knowledge, all knowing, omniscient in my body. Definition of God. One of the definitions of God, right? The divine lives our body, and we are the divine, and mostly we don't know it. And then we live as though we were the body, and then maybe only when we die we find out that we were never the body, right? Because then we go with life when it, at that point, and the body goes back to the ground, right?
I remember as a child, and it took me a long time to kind of remember this truth. But I remember as a child talking to my mother about God. I was really interested in the whole, I must have been about 8. And I was kind of fascinated with this idea of this presence. And I remember saying to her, kind of, there was this kind of quiet moment, and I said, I think God is within us and without us. And I was kind of quite, and I remember enjoying this idea of being within and without and the double meaning and
Yeah,
stuff, and kind
that's
of playing with the
wasn't
words.
that Harrison's song, Beatles song?
Ah, is it?
Yeah.
God, is that where I got it from?
Realize, and life goes on within us and without us. I'm
Ah,
not singing it right.
yeah,
you know.
but I'm going to look that up actually, Udo, because
Yeah,
maybe there's something about maybe I, in that childlike kind of wisdom,
yeah,
picked this idea and went, okay,
yeah.
so God is within and without us,
Well, if
and
God
that
is, mhm,
and that idea kind of carried with me, but I
right,
it took me decades to come
yeah,
back to it again as a
yeah,
conscious
yeah,
thought,
yeah,
a knowingness.
yeah. And kids know it because they're not
Yeah.
that far from it yet.
Yeah.
And that would have been true, and you could have come up with that independent of Harrison's song, right? Yeah, that might, like, children have insights sometimes. They're amazing,
Mm,
right? Very, very wise because they're not complicated and they're not
mm.
distracted as much as adults are until we distract them. Right? So
Yeah, until we learn those
Yeah,
techniques.
and the of course, when people that are religious say God is everywhere, well, if God is everywhere, then God's got to be inside of me too, outside of me and inside of me, right? You can't have it both ways. You can't have God is everywhere, no, but He's not in you, or it is not in you, or she is not in you, right? You can't have it both ways. If God is everywhere, God's in everybody, you know.
This is also reminding me of a moment round about the same age where my teacher actually made me go and stand outside of the classroom in the corridor because I kept insisting that my oldest brother was Jesus Christ, and
Ooh,
he wouldn't he wouldn't have it.
I can imagine that would not have gone over very well. That's not part of the dominant narrative.
It really wasn't. No, he was very unhappy
And
with me.
and you know what? In the '60s, there were people who stood on street corners and proclaimed, "I am Jesus Christ." But there was always anger in it. They were often schizophrenic
Mm.
because they sometimes have certain visions. But the thought of it was like the way that it came out is like, "I'm Jesus Christ and you're not."
Mm.
Now, if he'd have stood on the street corner and said, "You're Jesus Christ, and so is everybody
And so
else,"
is everyone else. Exactly.
that would have probably been better. What they
Yeah.
usually did is they got those people and locked them up in mental hospitals, right?
Yeah.
But the essence of Christ, the Christ consciousness, is life. In fact, life is solar energy. So when the natives say we're children of the sun, that's true. So is but just about every creature on the planet. So the sun shines on the earth, and it's absorbed by chlorophyll, and it activates electrons, and they then form bonds with other atoms to make molecules. So that solar energy is stored in the bonds in the molecules. Some of those are our food. We eat them, break them down in our cells, we metabolize them, break those bonds. There's the solar energy. It's released in our body. We call it life energy. And it runs everything, right? Just like it does in the trees and the beetles. I mean the 6 foot insect beetles, right?
Well, and the Beatles.
And the beetles, yes. And so runs everything. And when we go subjective on it, where we do a stillness practice to bring our awareness in touch or in mergence with that energy, then we call it God or Christ or Buddha nature. Enlightened. You know, the energy inside of you, you can see it as light, you can hear it as sound, you can feel it as love. It's all the energy that is solar energy, that is life energy, that is Christ or God or divine energy. It's all connected. And then if once you understand that and you feel it, then you look around and say, "Oh my God, Christ is everywhere. Oh my God, God is everywhere. Oh my God, peace is everywhere. Oh my God, unconditional love runs the whole universe." Right? Power is everything. Then you look around and say, "Whoa, oh, slowly smokes.
Yeah.
What am I a part of here? Holy smokes!" Right?
This is a very timely conversation for me personally, by the way. I just need to kind of raise a bit of a flag, and I'm
Yeah.
not surprised at all.
Well, I'm thinking it's a very timely conversation for 8 billion people on the
Oh,
planet, including both you and me.
yeah.
Works in progress in that journey,
Yeah.
right?
And so this, I have a kind of a sense of a question coming up here as well, that there are so many people right now who are afraid
Mm-hmm.
because of the chaos that we're seeing playing out around us. And
Yep.
while there is always chaos, it feels like it's particularly resonant right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wondered whether there is something here that you can share that can help people sort of take that kind of first step into that sense of peace. So, yeah, Where does your wisdom
Yeah.
take that thought, Udo?
The first thing I would say is trust or believe for the moment that it's already within you. And then go looking for it. And then if you want more focus on looking for it, then look at heartache. When your heart aches, don't go into your head. Sit with the heartache. Because it'll bring you home. Takes time. Takes a little time. Right? Because we're not good at it. We've become really good at going out. We're not very good at going in because we hardly ever practice. So you have to expect that it took you time to get out when you were born. It's gonna, how long did it take to learn to walk, to talk, to function socially? It took 20 years. It'll take some time to come in. But when you make time every day to consider or contemplate or engage that your peace that you're looking for, especially in the midst of war and chaos, is already within you, waiting for you to connect to it. So that's the only way you can feel it, right? It's like if I have $1 million in my left pocket, and I only look for money in my right pocket where I only got lint, right? I'm gonna feel like I'm really poor. If you look for peace only in where peace is not for you, you're not gonna find peace. See,
Or
for
just say
you,
that again. If you look,
if you're gonna look for peace everywhere except where it is for you, which is within you, you're not gonna find it. And we want our peace outside, where our peace, we've defined peace as the absence of war, but that's actually a ceasefire. There's no peace when the shooting stops. The people hate each other as much and sometimes more than they did before the war started, right? So that's not real peace, or peace through negotiation. Like, I'm not going to hurt you if you do it my way. That's what negotiation is, right? And then there's my way, what are my why way? And then we try and figure that out. That's not peace. That's just like putting off the war. Peace is something much more solid than that. Peace is much more personal than that. And peace has to be personal before it's social. Because when you have peace, then you become an influence in that direction. You can't make anybody go there, but it's attractive. Peace is attractive, right? So peace is social. Peace is personal before it's social. Peace is internal before it's external. If you got conflict in your head, it's only a matter of time before that conflict spills out into your environment.
and doesn't this ring true with so many things as well? I mean, when so much of the work that I do with people is around compassion, like that's my sort of, and
Yeah.
when we begin with self-compassion, because until we know how it feels, and I'm hearing so much resonance with the way that you're talking about peace, with that kind of sense of self-compassion, that when we begin here, then actually, just as you said, like peace is attractive, peace, people are kind of, and in exactly the same way, when you practice self-compassion, it is an attractive quality, not in the sense of like, get me, but in the sense of we are drawn to people who like themselves, not in a narcissistic way, but in a true, like, loving way.
Yeah, if you take it like to its deepest step, we are unconditional love.
Yeah.
As life, we are unconditional love. So where's all this judgment come from? That's all social and cultural, and we don't have to do that. We don't have to do that. Life is, even if you felt bad and then you had nasty thoughts and then you said mean things and you took destructive action, there's still no judgment, because you are not your feelings, your thoughts, your words, or your actions. You are life, and life is unconditional love. And what's interesting is when you stop judging people, and you help them get in touch with the unconditional love they are, their behavior changes, their thoughts change, their words change, and their feelings change. And that's the transformation of human beings. From what we've been led to believe and from what we've been judged to be, to go back to what in fact, by nature, by life, and by God, we are. Mm-hmm. And we're unconditional love. That's all the Master said that. You know, mine, I got it this way. I am come not to judge, but to love. That's the essence of Christ's message. I am come not to judge, but to love. But then you look at how we practice the religions, there is so much judgment and so little love. Right? And the masters all said, what I have, you have. If you do what I do, you will experience what I experience. Part of my development was I wanted to know what Jesus felt that inspired him to the life he lived. Nobody had ever said I couldn't do that. And, you know, I had a grandfather. I don't even know his name. He died before I was born. Nobody remembers him 50 years later. They're still talking about this guy 2,000 years later. What was the difference? I want to know what the feeling, I want to know what he felt. I want to have that experience. And so then I started chasing it, you know, reading the red letter edition, you know, and then putting things to the test. You know, that was also part of my development.
Mm. So using your science, your explorative curiosity and that science, in order to understand the inner landscape.
Yeah, but science in the sense of observation.
Yeah.
Everything we learn comes from experience, comes from observation. And so I made observations about things and paid attention to them because I wanted to know. It was my project. I wanted to know what the master felt. Right? Now I know. Does that make me the master? No. I'm in and out. I'm work in progress. But I know the track. And I know how to go back to it every time I want. Because I'm also active in the world. You know, and I do it as much as I can from the place of peace and from the place of love. But I'm not 100%. But you know, just because I'm not 100% doesn't mean I shouldn't try at all, right? So 50 years and I'm still a work in progress.
Beautiful. That's gosh. I mean,
I'm a whole lot better than the war child that was like the refugee child that was just going, right?
Do you know, one of the things that's been like the thought that's been kind of wafting around the room as I've been sort of listening to you is I adore the way that so many people who are on their path, consciously on their path, consciously exploring, consciously curious, the essence of it is that sharing this knowledge is part of the path. You know, this, you know, knowledge is power, you know, that expression. I've always been kind of fascinated by that. And therefore, the important thing is to share the knowledge. And so that there's such kind of generosity, I think, just listening to you, listening to what you're sharing, your experience, and this idea that we don't kind of hold on to this. It's not like, oh, this is like, I've discovered this secret, this is mine. Yeah. This is about...
Well, if we wanted to do that, then we would charge for it. Right? So, oh my God, I have this secret. I invented it. No, we didn't invent any of that.
And there's just
right?
one way as well. That's the
And
other
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah. My
And
way is
I,
the
I,
best
I
way.
look at it a little bit different. If life has purpose, there's got to be two purposes. The first one is that you were given a gift. You know, you're basically a handful of dust, 3 buckets of water, a little bit of gas, right? And a little bit of sunshine. And they all got mixed up together to make you. Holy smoke, that's amazing, right?
Mm.
Because, dust and water and air and sunlight, they're interesting, but they're not that interesting. But you are incredibly interesting. Oh my God, how could that be? How could that simple stuff have been put together in such a magnificent way that you could have the human experience, with all the happinesses and sadnesses and orgasms and tastes and smells and all the things that a human being has the gift to experience, right? Purpose one is to be fully present in all of your being and to fully experience what it means to be a human being in the time that you have. So that's purpose one. Purpose two is help where you can, because once you feel taken care of, then there's nothing left to do. Then it's not about what can I do to get myself taken care of. Then it's like, oh my God, I am so cared for. Where can I help? And the sharing is an automatic part of state of being. You cannot but share your state of being, right? If you're angry, you share that. If you're sad, you share that. Yeah. If you're paranoid, you share that. In fact, if you're paranoid and you share your paranoid, people start looking over their shoulders and you make them paranoid, right? So the sharing is automatic. It's just an extension of the field that you're in, of the state of being that you're in, whether it's an emotional state or it's a state of being, right? So the sharing is not like a duty or we should or anything
Yeah.
like that. It just happens,
Yeah.
right? Because of the experiences I have and live with, I have certain thoughts and expressions of it, right? And the more embedded I am in the experience, the less I have to make it up and the less I have to memorize it and the less I have to deliver speeches. This is a conversation. I'm just peeling it off, right? And why is that? Because you're there and I'm here and we decided to meet and do this, right? But it's automatic.
And so this brings my thought back to what you were saying earlier about this sense of peace, that, when we hold that feeling, that sense, that truth of peace inside us, it's an attractive quality and it also spreads. It's like the stone, the ripples in the
Yep.
pond.
Yep. Absolutely.
And and so there's also something here, I think, about, who we choose to spend our time with. So, when we look around us and we see people who have that sense of peacefulness, spend time with them.
Yeah, basically.
Allow yourself to
But
feel,
well, but only if you want that.
but only if you want that.
Yeah, because
Only
if
if you
you're
want that. And if you don't want it, no
yeah,
judgment.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, then
always.
you'll just go after what you want, and it's
Yeah.
people, But if you sit still and feel what it feels like when you're not distracted, something in you aches for something that might be kind of nebulous, but I'm saying it's for that wholeness, for that oneness, for that fulfillment that comes from being filled with the presence of yourself in the space your body occupies. Right?
It feels like such a beautiful place to close. There is a question that I like to ask my guests, Udo. And the question is, if you saw this time of your own life right now as a chapter in your book of life, what would that chapter heading be?
Okay, when I was 6 years old, I listened to people argue. We were living in Germany at the time. And the arguments were always heated, and they seemed to always, to me, as a 6-year-old, to be about really trivial stuff. Mm-hmm. And the thought came to me, man, there must be a better way to live, and I'm going to find out how. So that's been my driver all my life. That's why science and bioscience and everything, you know. So I would say that it's kind of like the return. It's like I found the answer and I want to make that available. That's kind of the because everybody's on the same track and everybody's been misled and everybody's gotten confused and everybody's living in reaction to all the stuff that's happening that they wish wasn't happening. But that's not, you know, hope is not a strategy. Wishing it wouldn't happen is not a strategy. What is the strategy? Come home to yourself, find your divine self, and let that shine into the world. So maybe we call that chapter "Let It Shine." You
Let
know,
it shine.
At long last, let it shine.
Oh, gosh. Thank you. I have.
Well, thank you. You know, if it doesn't work the same if I'm talking to myself in the bathroom mirror. It works very well when somebody live is actually listening and engaging.
Well, I am really, really honoured to have spent this time with you. And
Yeah,
so,
likewise.
I mean, gosh, just so much in what you've shared. And I know it's resonating with everyone listening, even though we haven't sent it live yet. I just know
Yeah.
it.
Well, you know,
And
see, so you're actually doing a bigger job than I am. You know, I'm just talking to you. You get to talk to hundreds. I don't know how many people you have that listen to it, but you're doing more than I am, right? Because the message is the message. Whether it comes out of me or comes out of you or comes over the phone or comes live or comes through the media, right? The social media. Yeah, message is the message. And you just pulled that out of me. You did. You did, because I read your thing and I looked at what you do, you know. You're obviously you're receptive and you're interested and it's a topic that you're in love with, right? So that makes all the difference.
yeah, yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you. I'm sending you an enormous hug over the Zoom airways. Thank you, my darling.
Thank you.